Good evening. I know I'm keeping you from some gala dinner, so I heard. So when I first received the invite for this presentation, I looked at the panel and there were 10 members and the time that was there was 60 minutes. So that's almost about 6 minutes per person. So I left my presentation in my hotel room and I'm going to talk to you today about certain aspects which I feel very strongly about. And when I talk about myself, let me tell you, I'm not an urban practitioner. I'm a technology evangelist. And the very first disclaimer that I would like to make before I begin my talk is that my job is not to belittle the achievements of the Urban Development Department and the strides that have been made in the urban governance area in the past 10 years, but to tell you or enlighten you of certain implementation issues that we have in our endeavor to realize the concept of smart city. This concept has been around since 2004. I've been delivering smart city presentations for almost a decade now, starting from about 2002, 2003. And across all solution vendors, across all consultants, the basic principles of smart cities have remained same. So I'm not going to give you a barrage of the same stuff over and over again. So to deliver on my promise, first and foremost, I would like to bring about the issue that IT organizations face, or organizations, even user organizations face, in realizing the value out of a urban governance IT implementation. Because it's not about automating the processes. It's about the social, political, and the economic outcomes. And if these outcomes are not met, it's very easy for people to say that the project has failed. And often, the IT project has failed. So if I were to look at some of the implementation issues, the first thing that comes to my mind is the leadership. IT is endorsed in a particular department or a particular municipal corporation because of leadership exhibited by a certain gentleman in the organization. And it is his leadership and his ability to garner the different stakeholders in a municipal corporation or a city development authority together to drive a project that decides on an RFP coming out, on a contract being awarded to a third party or an IT vendor. Unfortunately, given that we are a liberal democracy and there are issues in the way the bureaucracy is structured, that leadership moves away. And the next gentleman who comes in may or may not share the same zeal for the project, or maybe he has other charters in mind. So often the project, which was a marquee project just about a couple of years back, is often relegated to the background. The other aspect is ownership. Ownership both from the IT vendor as well as from the customer organization, in this case the municipal corporation. Ownership means that while the IT project is being driven, IT is just an enabler. Unless and until there is ownership from both the customer as well as the IT vendor, this project is not going to see its fruitful end. So it's very important to have a steering committee that drives the IT implementation, and the steering committee must have a democratic setup of people from the customer organization as well as the implementing agencies and consultants in between if you must. But the fact of life is it does not happen. And often the IT company is left to deliver this project on their own. The user does not communicate the processes well, does not communicate his requirements well, and I expect it to be that way because they are practitioners, they are not IT people. So there has to be a bridge in between. So IT is not the panacea for all your economic, social, or political, or other ills that are there, but it's just an enabler. So business process reengineering is very much required in a scenario to to drive ICT implementation to realize the goals of the smart city planet. Across Chandigarh to about Tamil Nadu, there are at least 11 different ways in which the simple process of birth registration happens. Now we need standardization across these processes. Unless the standardization happens, you will have different versions of software running across different municipal corporations. Consolidation will become an issue. And more importantly, what we often tend to forget is that when we talk about smart cities, we talk about urban governance, we are talking about the A-class cities and the B-class cities. But don't forget, is the C-class cities and the D-class cities is where most of the action today is happening. And we need to concentrate on those cities. And what are their issues? They don't have an IT, department. They cannot run a data center. They cannot run an application like, say for example, my employer's SAP. So what do you do for them? There are different consumption models that are available. Cloud is one of them. You put the application on a hosted service provider who provides the application as on a SaaS model or software as a service model. The urban local body just has to pay an OPEX throughout the year, and he gets the service, and there are several financial models that he can partake of while paying for that service. And not only one urban local bodies. In most of the larger states, we have 300, 400 such ULBs beneath the A-class, B-class and the C-class cities. And one solution can actually run across, and 300 different compartments can be mentioned. Another issue that comes up parallelly while we are looking at consumption in of a cloud model is the issue of data privacy. You would be surprised that even very secure countries, very particular about cyber security, or countries like Australia, they are hosting their Department of Human Services, the social development, the human services aspect of governance on the cloud model. So why can't we? The good point is the Department of Electronics and Information Technology in the Government of India is looking at a silver line model, and they're looking at the different universal standards that they can adopt to ensure data privacy. Even at a very lower level, where do you keep your money? In the bank. Sometimes in a private bank. Where do they have their data centers? 50% would have their data centers outside India, will probably have their disaster recovery sites in India. What is the next most important thing to you? Your families, your children, your spouses. You're on Facebook, right? Where does Facebook host your data? Outside this country, right? At any given point in time, when you are working on the net, there are 20 such sites which are tracking your movements. And they have every information available. You'll be surprised, you'll be amazed, you'll be aghast. Sometimes in the information technology world, ignorance is bliss. So the point that I'm trying to make is cloud could be a consumption model to look at smaller ULBs, because that is where I believe the next level of urban governance needs to hit. The third issue that I feel is that of collaborative outcomes. When I talk about collaborative outcomes from a smart city concept, I'm talking about certain issues which may not be today in the jurisdictional purview of the municipal corporation, could be in the home affairs and other areas, maybe disaster management authorities or the disaster management task force of the civil defense organization. And such collaborative outcomes are in the area of public security, say emergency and disaster management. Most of the municipal corporations also have municipal schools, municipal hospitals. So over a period of time, these guys have started gone going and building applications for all the needs. And this has given rise to information silos. And today, if the municipal corporator or the commissioner wants to have a 360-degree view of what's happening with his governance processes across the different stakeholders within his organization and outside, he does not have a clear view because there is no consolidation. And one different point that I would like to make between this chair and the last chair is that we talked about data consolidation. We did not talk about process consolidation. I think more important than data consolidation is because the data consolidation technologies are very mature. What is not mature still is the process integration part of it. So unless and until we adopt a model which allows, which fosters process integration, we are not going to realize the dream of smart cities. The next most important part is that, consultants like Gartner, Meta Group, so on and so forth, tell us that in urban areas or in computing, parlance, a lot of the computing interface is going to move away from the traditional desktop and the laptops onto mobile devices. So what does this mean for a municipal corporation? That the citizen services have to be moved to mobile devices. Now imagine the problems with it. Because each one of them are going to have a different mobile handset, a different operating system, a different screen size, and yet the citizen service has to be enabled on that device. That's not going to be easy unless and until you have an enterprise mobility infrastructure. Now I'm not trying to make a municipal corporation an IT company, but what I am going to, trying to tell you is that to realize the dream of smart city is very good on a PowerPoint presentation, but very tough to do it on reality because there are several aspects that you have to keep in mind, and I'm just about touching the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is the area of urban transport management. Most of the time we see a lot of traffic jams in the city. And some innovative municipal corporations have turned it to their advantage. Instead of one-way, two-way, and so on, permutations and combinations that we see every day in and day out, a lot of them have adopted electronic, toll collection methodologies so that they have this evaluative road pricing. That if you use this particular road between such and such time and you have the technology to back it, I would be taxing you so much amount of rupees for using this during the peak hour. This allows people to, also plan their day out, pool their vehicles together, thus reducing the carbon impact. And people become more connected because there are other modes of transport which are available and other modes of communication to get to a point which are also available. So the concept of connected, smarter cities begins to evolve. So from road pricing to electronic toll collection to smart hospitals to smart education centers to smart municipal corporations, we are trying to realize this goal. Again, there is this pitfall. The pitfall is that for each and everything, we are going to use technologies, and sometimes these technologies do not talk to each other. So while we are evaluating the technology, we should be careful about the adoption of universal standards. Why do you adopt universal standards? So that systems can talk to each other. So buy software which conform to universal standards so that later on you don't have an issue with integration. Last but not the least is the issue of procurement. And there's a huge debate around what is the best model of procurement. Our country has graduated from an L1 regime onto a QCBS regime. These days I hear even the QCBS specifications can be tweaked. There are other models which are evolving: build, own, operate, transfer, build, own, operate, so on and so forth. I was speaking to some customers and their senior functionaries, and they tell me that often private companies are misstating their break-even points and hence making more profit than what they would have told in their initial offer. So governments and think tanks together needs to come up with a evolutionary and an innovative procurement method that takes care of the municipal corporation's requirements, ensures that it buys the best at a reasonable cost. Issues such as Swiss challenge as a procurement methodology are also coming up. These are generally, supported by the World Bank and other donor agencies. But I think what's good for the geese is not often good for the gander. So for a country like India, we need to come up with more innovative models that work. And we trust the bureaucracy in coming out with such innovative models in the future. So I think I've taken more time than I had bargained. So I hope whatever I discussed was meaningful to you. I'm open to questions on technology as well as some aspects of governance, but there are better practitioners on the panel. So thank you once again, and Jai Hind.